Hi everyone, my name is Brianna Salvino, and welcome to my presentation on Russian holidays. Throughout the course, we focused on many holidays that occur in Russia. This is going to be mainly an overview of the most popular ones. We're going to begin with Russian New Year, which falls as the first holiday in Russia, as well as most places and everywhere else in the world. Following the Gregorian calendar, New Year's happens on January 1st through the 6th. But because Russia used to follow the Julian calendar, some Russians will still celebrate New Year's on January 14th. And because Christmas falls on January 7th, it often becomes a combined New Year's and Christmas celebration. The way in which it is celebrated is very similar to that of in the United States. Both countries have parties, fireworks, and toasts. And then there's the most popular food you can see in the top picture, and then the fireworks in Moscow you can see on the bottom picture. A difference between Russian New Year and American New Year is that on New Year's comes Grandfather Frost, or in Russian, Ded Moroz. He comes to the children similar to Santa Claus and brings small gifts, but this occurs on New Year's Day and not on Christmas. Eastern Orthodox Christmas is celebrated in Russia on January 7th. It is a smaller celebration than New Year's, and it is strictly religious based. Like I said earlier, the Grandfather Frost comes during New Year's and not Christmas, so it separates the presents and the religious aspect of it. It is on January 7th because it still follows the Julian calendar. And a little bit of history behind Christmas in Russia is that during the Soviet Union, it was rarely celebrated and actually became banned after the revolution in 1917. In 1929, Christmas trees were banned until 1935, when they became known as New Year's trees. Anyone who wanted to celebrate Christmas had to do so secretly. This led to New Year's being the big major holiday in Russia. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, however, people were free to celebrate Christmas, but it is still a smaller celebration than New Year's. You can see in the picture on the bottom, those are the Sochevnik sweet rolls. Those are a popular dessert or food found in Russia during this time. And then there is also a picture of the Christmas tree in Moscow on the top. The next holiday we have is Defender of the Fatherland Day. It is actually unknown why it is celebrated on this day. It doesn't really hold a real historical significance, but Russia first celebrated this day in 1922. It was the 4th anniversary of the Red Army. So this day was actually originally known as Red Army Day. Defender of the Fatherland Day is a public holiday, so there are no schools and many businesses are closed. And as you can see, it commemorates men's service in the military, because in Russia, military service is obligatory for most Russian men. So this day is in honor of those who serve. It's also similar to Father's Day in the United States. Women will give small gifts like cards to their male relatives, whether they served in the military or not, and the local governments will hold parades in honor of the veterans. It is now more common for women to serve in the military, so the masculinity of this holiday is changing due to the introduction of women in the military, but it is still categorized similar to Father's Day. In line with that, the next holiday is International Women's Day. This happens all over the world on March 8th, and it's a symbol for the fight for women's rights across the globe. International holiday for empowering women. In the picture, you can see the groups of women from all over the world really uniting and showing that it's international. And the other picture is an old Soviet poster for International Women's Day. It's a little boy giving flowers to a little girl. In the United States and many other countries, International Women's Day is seen as a chance to demand equal rights and justice, but in Russia it has taken on an entirely different meaning. Russia is considered one of the birthplaces of Women's Day, where it was originally also conceived as a day of feminist action. But the public holiday long ago morphed into something more like Valentine's Day, blended with Mother's Day, which is why you can see the little boy giving gifts to the girl. It is a public holiday, often celebrated with dinner and champagne with close relatives and friends, and men and women give out postcards with poetry, flowers, and chocolates to important female figures like mothers, sisters, grandmothers, and wives. Some men will even take on all of the women's work, like cooking, cleaning, and caring for children, so the women can have a real full day of rest. The next important holiday in Russia is Pascha, or Easter as we know it in the US. It changes the day depending on the year, just like in the US. This year it was celebrated on April 20th. It falls on a different day because Russians still adhere to the traditional day from the Julian calendar, which is why it's different than when it's celebrated in America. Russia has since switched over to the Gregorian calendar, but Pascha has continued to follow the traditional date. Pascha Vigil is the Saturday before Pascha, celebrated with a church service that lasts until midnight, and the service includes bell tolls, the lighting of candles, and lots of singing. The next day, on Pascha Sunday, there is a large feast, typically with a ham and roasted lamb. There is also a traditional dessert known as pashka, which is similar to a cheesecake or a sweetbread. That is actually what is seen in the bottom picture. And just like in the US, eggs are dyed, but in Russia they're typically dyed red. This is a symbol of Easter and beauty, which you can see in the top picture. The next holiday is Maslenitsa. It is celebrated the week before Lent and is kind of similar to a Russian version of Mardi Gras. It's a holiday that symbolizes the beginning of spring and the end of winter. Traditionally, it is celebrated in February to March. There is no fixed date, and it occurs the whole week from Monday to Sunday. This year it took place from February 24th to March 1st. There are several variants for the name of the holiday: Pancake Week, or Blini as it is known, which you can see in the top picture, Blinchina, Maslenitsa, and even Abeducha, which means to overeat. Blini is a popular food during this time, like I just said. They're basically the Russian version of a pancake and can be seen in the top photo on the right. Each day there is a different festival, which involves spending time with family and friends and eating a lot of food. On the last day, Forgiveness Sunday, the Maslenitsa doll is burned to symbolize new beginnings and forgiveness. People also will ask forgiveness from their relatives and have parties in the streets. Our next holiday is Cosmonautics Day. The United Nations General Assembly declared April 12th to be the International Day of Manned Space Flight. And it recognizes in Russia, obviously, the Russian achievements in space exploration, specifically those by Yuri Gagarin. On April 12, 1961, Vostok 1 orbited the Earth with Yuri Gagarin aboard, making it the first successful manned spaceflight in history. And you can see Yuri in his spacecraft in the bottom picture. The top picture shows the two dogs. These dogs were the first animals to survive space travel. Their names were Belka and Straka, and they, along with a rabbit, 42 mice, 2 rats, flies, and several plants, were the first animals to survive space orbit. Victory Day is the next holiday. It is a public holiday and it is celebrated on May 9th. It commemorates the day when Nazi Germany signed the German Instrument of Surrender on May 9th in 1945. This is shown on the image on the right, where you can see Field Marshal Wilhelm Keidel signing the papers. This day became a holiday in the 15 republics of the Soviet Union from 1946 to 1950, but it wasn't until 1965 the Victory Day became a non-Labor Day in Russia, the Russian Soviet Federal Socialist Republic. When Vladimir Putin took office, Victory Day became increasingly popular and entirely different. It now involves large parades with fireworks and a full day of national pride. The 60th and 70th anniversaries of Victory Day, 2005 and 2015, became the largest popular holidays since the fall of the Soviet Union. Russian Day is celebrated on June 12th. It is celebrated on this day because on June 12th in 1990, Soviet leaders signed a Declaration of Russian State Sovereignty. This document symbolized the beginning of democratic reforms in Russia. People may attend concerts and fireworks during this day, which would take place in many cities throughout the country. Also, prominent Russian writers, scientists, and humanitarian workers will receive a national award from the Russian president. But for others, it is simply a day off from school and work. Many Russians refuse to celebrate this holiday. For us in America, it seems like a great thing to have the Soviet Union ending, and for many Russians in the future, they see that it was. However, during the time, it was seen as a time of unemployment and poverty due to all of the changes. The demise of the Soviet Union often led to this unemployment and poverty, and so many people oppose celebrating June 12th. For the people that do oppose it, it is spent in countryside homes or dachas, or doing other outdoor activities. The next holiday is Unity Day, which is celebrated on November 4th. It commemorates a Russian popular uprising that freed Moscow from Polish-Lithuanian occupation forces on November 4th in 1612. Russians celebrate Unity Day in many ways. Some will lay flowers on the monuments for Kuzma Minin and Dmitry Pozarsky, who led a popular uprising that freed the Moscow from occupation on November 4th. So these are the main two people who are credited with winning this uprising. Russian Orthodox Christians may also attend a church service to honor the Lady of Kazan, one of the most important Russian Orthodox icons. November 4th is known as her feast day. The church service usually ends with a procession, and many politicians, public, and religious figures stress and televise addresses the need for unity of all ethnic and religious groups in the Russian Federation. And similar to Russia Day, there are many concerts and exhibitions on this day as well. You can see in the picture on the bottom, that is actually a picture of Minin and Pozarsky, and then the picture on the top is a procession through Russia in celebration of Unity Day. And this is the works cited, and I hope you all enjoyed my presentation.